The digital clock in the corner of the conference room blinked 11:43 when Victoria Hayes finally shook hands with the last executive from global tech industries. Her fingers ached from gripping pens. Her throat was dry from hours of presentation, but the deal was done. $20 billion. The largest merger in her company's history, and she had orchestrated every single detail. "Congratulations, Miss Hayes," said Robert Chun, Global Tech CEO, his handshake firm and respectful. "Your team's strategy was flawless. We're fortunate to be partnering with someone of your caliber." Victoria smiled professionally, though exhaustion pulled at every muscle in her body. "Thank you, Mr. Chun. I look forward to a successful collaboration." As the executives filed out of the glass-walled conference room on the 32nd floor, Victoria's assistant, Michelle, appeared with a bottle of water and genuine excitement in her eyes. "You did it. The board is thrilled. They want to announce your promotion to Chief Operating Officer next week." "Let's wait until the ink is dry," Victoria replied, though she couldn't suppress a small smile. 5 years of 80-hour weeks, countless sacrifices, and strategic brilliance had led to this moment. She was 41 years old, and at the peak of her professional life, her phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from colleagues and board members. She scrolled through them while gathering her leather briefcase and blazer. One text made her pause. It was from her boss, the company's founder. "Victoria, you've exceeded every expectation. Your bonus will reflect the magnitude of tonight's achievement. Enjoy this moment." "You've earned it." Michelle watched Victoria's face. "Are you going to celebrate? Maybe call your husband and share the news?" Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "Marcus doesn't really understand my work. He thinks I process paperwork all day." "You've never told him what you actually do." "It's complicated," Victoria said quietly, slipping her phone into her bag. "He has his pride. I learned a long time ago not to threaten it." The truth was more painful than Victoria wanted to admit. 3 years ago, when she'd been promoted to senior vice president, she'd come home excited to share the news. Marcus had been drinking after losing a sales account, and his reaction had been cold. "Good for you," he'd said flatly. "At least somebody in this house is worth something." That night, watching him spiral into self-pity and resentment, Victoria had made a decision. She would keep her professional success separate from her home life. She would protect Marcus from the reality that his wife earned 10 times his salary, that she closed deals worth billions while he struggled to meet monthly quotas. It had seemed like kindness at the time. Now, driving home through the quiet city streets just past midnight, Victoria wondered if she'd made the right choice. The leather interior of her Mercedes smelled like success, expensive, polished, earned. But as she pulled into the driveway of the modest suburban house she shared with Marcus, that confidence began to drain away. Every light in the house blazed. Music and laughter spilled from the open windows. Victoria's stomach tightened with familiar dread. She recognized that laughter, high-pitched, flirtatious, cruel. Ashley, the woman from Marcus's gym. Victoria sat in her car for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel, preparing herself for whatever scene waited inside. Tonight should have been about celebration, about triumph. Instead, she was walking into a battlefield, and she was already exhausted from the war she'd just won. She grabbed her briefcase and walked toward her front door. The stench of wine and cheap perfume hit Victoria the moment she opened the door. She removed her heels carefully, setting them by the entrance, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy, even as her heart pounded against her ribs. Well, Marcus's voice cut through the music. "Look who finally decided to come home." Victoria moved toward the living room, her stockinged feet silent on the hardwood floors. Marcus sprawled on their couch with Ashley pressed against his side, her hand possessively gripping his thigh. Empty wine bottles covered the coffee table like casualties of war, Marcus's eyes were glassy with alcohol. He struggled to focus on Victoria's face. "Where have you been?" "It's almost 1 in the morning. I had an important meeting that ran late." Victoria kept her voice steady, professional, as though she were addressing a difficult client. "We were finalizing a major project." Ashley giggled, the sound like nails on glass. "A major project? What? Organizing the supply closet?" Marcus laughed along with her, his face flushed red. "That's all she does, you know. Sits in some office pushing papers around. Calls it important work." Victoria's jaw tightened. "It is important work, Marcus. It's how I contribute to this household." "Contribute?" Marcus struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. "You think your little secretary job is a contribution? I'm the one who brings home real money. I close real deals with real clients. You just type emails all day." "I never said I was a secretary," Victoria replied quietly. "You work in an office doing office stuff." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "Same thing. Meanwhile, I'm out there in the field, fighting for every sale, earning my paycheck through actual skill." Ashley smirked up at Victoria. "Marcus told me about your job. Sounds super boring. How do you even stay awake all day?" Victoria looked at the woman draped across her husband. Ashley was younger, probably early 30s, with bleached hair and too much makeup. She wore tight yoga pants and a crop top that revealed a toned stomach. Everything about her screamed desperation disguised as confidence. "I manage," Victoria said evenly. "Marcus, can we talk privately?" "No." Marcus moved toward the kitchen with the exaggerated care of someone very drunk. "We can't talk privately. I'm entertaining a guest. Unlike you, I actually know how to be social." Victoria watched him grab the yellow mop bucket from beside the sink. Her stomach dropped. The bucket was half full of dirty water from when she'd cleaned the floors that morning before rushing to work. The water was gray and murky, specks of dirt floating on the surface. "You know what your real problem is, Victoria?" Marcus carried the bucket back toward her, sloshing water over the sides. "You think you're special. You think your boring office job makes you better than everyone else. Marcus, what are you doing?" Victoria took a step backward, her mind racing. "I'm teaching you a lesson about humility." Marcus's face twisted into something ugly and unfamiliar. "You walk around here like you're somebody important, like you're too good for me. But you're nothing. You're just a paper pusher who can't even keep her husband satisfied." Ashley watched from the couch, her eyes bright with malicious anticipation. "Do it, baby. Show her who's boss." Victoria raised her hands defensively. "Marcus, you drunk. Put the bucket down and let's talk about this tomorrow." "I'm tired of talking tomorrow." Marcus lifted the bucket with both hands. "I'm tired of your excuses. I'm tired of you thinking you're better than me. You want to know what you really are?" Time seemed to slow down. Victoria saw the bucket tilt, saw the dirty water begin to arc through the air. She tried to move, but her feet wouldn't obey. The cold, filthy liquid hit her like a physical blow, soaking her hair. Her face, her expensive silk blouse that had cost more than Marcus earned in a week. The water was ice cold and reeked of floor cleaner and accumulated grime. It ran down her face in rivulets, dripping onto the hardwood floor she'd cleaned that morning. Some of it went into her mouth, bitter and disgusting. She stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Ashley's laughter pierced through Victoria's shock. "Oh my God, Marcus, you actually did it. That's amazing." Marcus set the empty bucket down with a thud. "That's what you are, Victoria. Dirty water, worthless. I bust my back every single day trying to provide for this family. And what do? You contribute nothing. Nothing." Victoria's entire body shook, but not from the cold water. Something deep inside her, something that had been bending and bending for years, finally snapped clean through. She looked at Marcus, really looked at him. and saw him with perfect clarity for the first time in their 8-year marriage. She saw a weak man, a small man, a man who needed to destroy others to feel powerful because he had nothing real to offer the world. His cruelty wasn't strength. It was fear. "Are you going to cry now?" Ashley taunted, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Are you going to beg him to stop being mean to you?" Victoria said nothing. She stood there, dripping and silent, her mascara running in black streams down her cheeks. The woman Marcus and Ashley saw was someone pitiful, someone broken. But inside, Victoria Hayes was calculating, planning, preparing. Without a word, she turned and walked up the stairs, leaving a trail of dirty water behind her. She could hear them laughing, hear Marcus opening another bottle of wine, hear Ashley congratulating him on putting his wife in her place. Victoria walked into the master bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. Only then did she allow herself to breathe. Victoria stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. Dirty mop water dripped from her hair onto her shoulders. Her silk blouse, a designer piece she bought to celebrate her last promotion, was ruined. Mascara streaked down her face in dark lines that made her look like she'd been crying. Though her eyes were completely dry, she pulled her phone from her blazer pocket. The screen was wet but still functional. 16 missed calls from the office. 8 text messages from board members. 3 emails marked urgent. All of them congratulations. All of them about the $20 billion deal she'd just closed. One email was from the company's CEO. "Victoria, exceptional work tonight. The board voted unanimously to promote you to Chief Operating Officer. Your new salary will be $2.8 million annually, plus bonuses. We'll make the official announcement Monday. You've earned this." Victoria set the phone on the marble countertop and began removing her soaked clothes. The expensive fabric peeled away from her skin like a second layer of shame. She dropped everything into the hamper. These clothes would never be worn again. The hot water of the shower felt like absolution. She stood under the spray for a long time, washing away the dirty mop water, but unable to wash away the memory of Marcus's face. The contempt, the satisfaction, the cruelty. For 3 years, she'd hidden her success from him. She'd let him believe she was just a mid-level office worker earning a modest salary. She'd protected his fragile ego from the truth that she was a strategic genius, that Fortune 500 companies sought her expertise, that her name appeared in business journals and industry publications. She'd made herself invisible to make him feel visible. And in return, he'd poured dirty water on her. Victoria dried off and put on clean clothes. Simple, black pants and a gray sweater. Comfortable, practical. She could hear Marcus and Ashley downstairs, still laughing, still drinking. She sat on the edge of the bed and opened her laptop. First, she emailed her attorney, Karen Williams, a woman she'd kept on retainer for 6 months. "Karen, it's time. I'm ready to proceed with everything we discussed. Please prepare all necessary documentation." Then she opened a folder on her desktop labeled Financial Records. Inside were 3 years of meticulous documentation. Bank statements showing Marcus's suspicious withdrawals. Credit card bills with charges at hotels and restaurants Victoria had never visited. Photographs from the private investigator she'd hired 2 months ago. Marcus and Ashley at a beach resort. Marcus and Ashley entering a hotel room. Marcus and Ashley shopping with what appeared to be Victoria's credit card. She had text message records recovered through the phone company. She had emails Marcus thought he'd deleted. She had testimony from witnesses who'd seen them together. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. Victoria had been preparing for this moment, even before she fully admitted it to herself. Some part of her had known deep down that her marriage was beyond saving. She'd just been waiting for the right catalyst, The right moment of clarity. Marcus had given her that moment when he poured dirty water on her head. The final email she sent was to Michelle, her assistant. Please clear my schedule for tomorrow afternoon. I have personal business to attend to. Also, thank you for your support on the global tech deal. We made history tonight. Victoria closed the laptop and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She could still hear voices downstairs. Marcus's drunken boasting, Ashley's simpering laughter. Let them celebrate. Let them think they'd won. Tomorrow, Victoria would show them what real power looked like. She thought about the mop bucket, about the dirty water, about Marcus's words. You're nothing. You contribute nothing to this household. He thought she was worthless. He thought humiliating her would break her spirit. He had no idea that he'd just freed her from the last shred of guilt she felt about leaving him. The woman who'd walked through that door 2 hours ago would have tried to salvage the marriage, would have made excuses, would have found some way to blame herself. But that woman no longer existed. She'd been washed away by dirty water. What remained was someone new. Someone clear-eyed and purposeful. Someone who understood her own value and refused to accept anything less than what she deserved. Victoria picked up her phone one more time. She opened her banking app and transferred 70% of the joint checking account into a new account Marcus didn't know existed. She changed her direct deposit information so her salary would go into that separate account. She updated her beneficiary information on all her insurance policies and retirement accounts. By the time she was finished, Marcus had access to about $8,000 in their joint account. He thought it was all the money they had. He had no idea about Victoria's real salary account, which held over $4 million in savings and investments. He'd never asked, never cared to understand the details of their finances. That ignorance was about to cost him everything. Victoria set an alarm on her phone for 6 in the morning. Then she closed her eyes and did something that surprised her. She slept. Deeply, peacefully, better than she'd slept in years. Downstairs, Marcus and Ashley drank wine and laughed about the stupid wife who'd been put in her place. But upstairs, Victoria Hayes was already 10 steps ahead, planning her future with the same strategic brilliance that had just closed a $20 billion deal. The dirty water hadn't broken her. It had just washed away the last of her doubts. Victoria woke at 5:47, 3 minutes before her alarm. The house was silent. Marcus and Ashley had finally passed out sometime in the early morning hours. She dressed in running clothes and left through the back door without making a sound. The morning air was crisp and cool as she drove to her favorite coffee shop near the office. She ordered a large cappuccino and sat at a corner table with her laptop, reviewing the documentation Karen had prepared over the past months. The divorce petition was comprehensive. Karen had outlined all marital assets and made it crystal clear which belonged to Victoria alone. The prenuptial agreement Marcus had signed 8 years ago protected everything Victoria had earned before the marriage and everything she'd kept in separate accounts. The only jointly owned assets were the house and the checking account with $8,000 in it. Everything else, Victoria's salary accounts, her investments, her retirement funds, her stock options, belonged to her alone. Victoria reviewed the evidence of Marcus's affair one more time. The photographs were damning. Marcus and Ashley at a romantic restaurant. Marcus and Ashley at a beach resort during a weekend he'd claimed to be at a sales conference. Marcus and Ashley entering a hotel room together last Thursday afternoon. The private investigator had been thorough. Victoria had receipts, timestamps, witness statements. If this went to trial, Marcus would be destroyed. But Karen was confident he'd settle quickly once he saw what they had. Victoria's phone buzzed. It was a text from her boss. Saw the Financial Times this morning. Front page coverage of the global tech deal. Your photo looks fantastic. The board wants to schedule a press conference for Monday to announce your promotion. Are you available? Victoria smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity." She opened her laptop browser and searched for her name. The results made her heart race. Business Insider, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, TechCrunch. They all had articles about the historic merger and the brilliant executive who'd orchestrated it. Victoria Hayes, the strategic mind behind tech's biggest deal of the decade, read the Forbes headline. The accompanying photo showed Victoria in her office, looking confident and powerful. Meet Victoria Hayes, the Q who just changed the industry, declared Business Insider. Her face was everywhere. Her success was public. There was no more hiding, no more protecting Marcus's ego from reality. Victoria spent the morning at the office, meeting with her team and reviewing the final details of the global tech integration. By noon, she'd received congratulations from over 50 colleagues and industry contacts. Everyone was excited about the deal and her promotion. At 2 o'clock, she left the office and drove to a luxury apartment complex downtown. The leasing agent, a professional woman in her 40s, greeted her warmly. "Miss Hayes, welcome. I think you're going to love this unit." The penthouse was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline. The kitchen had top-of-the-line appliances. The master bedroom was spacious and bright with a walk-in closet the size of her current bedroom. "I'll take it," Victoria said. "When can I move in?" "We can have you in by the end of the week. I'll need first and last month's rent plus security deposit." The apartment cost $11,000 per month, more than Marcus earned in 3 months. Victoria wrote the check without hesitation. This would be her sanctuary, her fresh start. By the time Victoria returned home at 6 that evening, Marcus was awake and hungover. He sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands, a glass of water untouched in front of him. Ashley was nowhere to be seen. "You're home early," Marcus muttered without looking up. "I had some personal business to take care of." Victoria set her purse on the counter, her movements calm and deliberate. "About last night," Marcus started. "Don't," Victoria interrupted. "We'll talk about last night later. Right now, I need to ask you something. When are you going back to work?" Marcus's face went pale. "What do you mean?" "I mean, when are you returning to your job? You've been gone for several days." "I've been working from home," Marcus lied, but his voice wavered. Victoria pulled a manila envelope from her purse and placed it on the table in front of him. "Marcus, I know you were fired. I know you've been lying about going to work for the past 4 months. I know about the harassment complaints, the settlement, all of it." Marcus's hands trembled as he stared at the envelope. "How did you? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that you've been living off my income while telling me I contribute nothing. What matters is that you've been stealing money from our joint account to fund an affair. What matters is that you poured dirty water on me last night while I was standing in clothes that cost more than you'll earn all year." "Victoria, listen. No, Marcus. You listen." Victoria's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "I'm leaving you. My attorney will be serving you with divorce papers within the week. You'll get nothing except what's in our joint checking account, about $8,000. Everything else is mine, protected by the prenup you signed." Marcus stood up, his face flushing red. "You can't do this. I'm your husband. That's my house too. Actually, it's not. The house is in my name only. I bought it with money from my signing bonus before we got married. You'll need to find somewhere else to live." "This is insane." "You're being crazy." "I'm being clear-headed for the first time in years," Victoria replied. "You thought you could humiliate me, steal from me, cheat on me, and I'd just accept it. You were wrong." Marcus moved closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You're going to regret this." Victoria didn't flinch. The only thing I regret is wasting 8 years on someone who never saw my value." She turned and walked up the stairs, leaving Marcus standing in the kitchen. She packed a suitcase with essentials, enough clothes and toiletries for a week. Then she returned downstairs, grabbed her laptop and briefcase, and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Marcus demanded. "Somewhere you'll never find me." Victoria drove straight to her new penthouse apartment. The mover she'd hired would arrive tomorrow to collect the rest of her belongings. Tonight, she just needed space to breathe, to think, to plan. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her new home, looking out at the city lights below. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages, colleagues congratulating her on the deal, journalists requesting interviews, industry leaders wanting to connect dots for the first time in 3 years. Victoria didn't hide her success. She didn't make herself small. She simply existed in her full power, and it felt like freedom. Marcus had poured dirty water on her, thinking he was demonstrating her worthless. Instead, he'd washed away the last of her fear. 3 days later, Victoria sat in her corner office reviewing the preliminary integration plans for Global Tech when Michelle knocked softly on the doorframe. "Victoria, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent." Her name is Diana Patterson. Victoria's breath caught. Marcus's mother. She'd always liked Diana. The woman was kind, intelligent, and had never approved of her son's behavior. But Victoria wasn't prepared for this conversation. "Send her in," Victoria said. Setting down her pen. Diana entered a moment later, and Victoria was shocked by how much older she looked. The past few days must have been difficult for her too. "Victoria, honey," Diana said, her voice gentle. "Thank you for seeing me. I know things are complicated right now. Would you like to sit down?" Victoria gestured to the chair across from her desk. Diana sat, her hands folded in her lap. "I came here to tell you something important. Marcus called me 3 days ago, crying, telling me you're divorcing him. He made it sound like you were being cruel and vindictive." Victoria remained silent, letting Diana continue. "So I did what any mother would do. I started asking questions. I talked to your neighbors. I talked to some of Marcus's friends. And I learned things about my son that broke my heart." Diana's eyes filled with tears. "Victoria, I know what he did to you. The affair, the theft, the way he treated you. And I know about what happened that night with the water." "Diana, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Diana interrupted firmly. "I need to say this. Marcus's father and I raised him better than this. I don't know where we went wrong, but watching him throw away his marriage and his integrity, it's devastating." She reached across the desk and took Victoria's hand. "I'm not here to ask you to forgive him or take him back. I'm here to tell you that I support your decision completely. You were always too good for Marcus. I told him that when you were engaged, but he never listened." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know. I also came to tell you that I saw the articles about your work. That $20 billion deal, your promotion to Sue. Victoria, I'm so incredibly proud of you. I had no idea you'd achieve so much." "I kept it quiet," Victoria admitted. "Marcus couldn't handle my success, so I hid it." "That's heartbreaking," Diana said softly. "You should never have to dim your light for anyone. I'm sorry my son made you feel like you had to." After Diana left, Victoria sat at her desk for a long time, thinking about kindness and courage. Diana had shown tremendous courage in standing up to her own son, in telling Victoria the truth, even when it must have been painful. That afternoon, Victoria made a decision. She called Karen, her attorney. "Karen, I want to establish a fund. Something to help women who are trapped in financially abusive marriages. I want to provide legal assistance, temporary housing, financial counseling, whatever they need to get out safely and start over." "That's a beautiful idea, Victoria." Do you have a name in mind? The Fresh Start Foundation. Because that's what I'm getting, and I want other women to have the same chance. Victoria committed $500,000 to launch the foundation. It was a significant amount of money, but she could afford it. More importantly, she wanted to turn her painful experience into something meaningful. The next morning, Victoria received a call from an unexpected source, Ashley. "Victoria, we need to talk." Ashley's voice was strained, lacking its usual arrogance. "I have nothing to say to you. Please, just listen. Marcus has been staying with me since you kicked him out. Last night, he got drunk, and he poured water on me too. Said I was worthless, just like you. Said all women are the same." Victoria felt a cold satisfaction. "I'm sorry that happened to you, Ashley, but I'm not interested in discussing Marcus with you. I'm not asking you to take him back or anything," Ashley said quickly. "I'm calling because I realized something. You weren't the problem. Marcus was. And I helped him hurt you, and I'm sorry. I was jealous of you, your success, your confidence, your life. But you didn't deserve what we did to you." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Ashley, I appreciate the apology, but actions have consequences. What you and Marcus did was cruel, and I'm not interested in forgiveness right now. I'm interested in moving forward." "I understand," Ashley said quietly, "but I wanted you to know I'm leaving Marcus, and I'm going to testify about his behavior if your attorney needs me to." After hanging up, Victoria realized something profound. Ashley's apology didn't heal the hurt, but it confirmed what Victoria already knew. Marcus was the problem, not her. Any woman who got close to him would eventually be treated the same way. That evening, Victoria attended a charity gala for women's causes. She wore a stunning emerald dress and carried herself with quiet confidence. Several people approached her to discuss the global tech deal, and she found herself genuinely enjoying the conversations. Near the end of the evening, a young woman approached her nervously. She looked to be in her mid-20s, professionally dressed but clearly uncomfortable at such a formal event. "Miss Hayes, I'm sorry to bother you," the woman said. "My name is Jessica Torres. I read about you in Forbes, about how you're getting divorced after building this incredible career. I just wanted to thank you." "Thank you for what?" Victoria asked gently. "For showing me it's possible. I've been engaged to someone who constantly criticizes my ambitions. It makes me feel guilty for wanting a career. Your story gave me the courage to break things off. I called off the engagement yesterday." Victoria felt emotion well up in her chest. "That took tremendous courage, Jessica. I'm proud of you." "I was scared," Jessica admitted. "But then I thought, if Victoria Hayes can walk away from an 8-year marriage and still thrive, I can walk away from a 2-year relationship that makes me feel small." After Jessica left, Victoria stood alone on the gala terrace, looking out at the city lights. She thought about Diana's courage in confronting difficult truths about her son. She thought about Ashley's courage in admitting she was wrong. She thought about Jessica's courage in choosing herself over a relationship that diminished her. Courage came in many forms. And sometimes, the most courageous thing you could do was simply refuse to accept less than you deserved. The divorce papers were served on Monday morning. Marcus received them at the gym, a deliberate choice by Karen to ensure there were witnesses and to prevent him from destroying the documents. According to the process server's report, Marcus had turned pale, started shouting, and eventually had to be escorted from the building by gym management. He called Victoria 47 times that day. She didn't answer once. That evening, sitting in her penthouse apartment with a glass of wine and a view of the sunset, Victoria finally listened to his voicemails. The first ones were angry. "You can't do this to me. I'm your husband. You owe me an explanation." The middle ones were desperate. "Victoria, please answer. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. The final one was defeated. I just read the financial documents your attorney sent. I had no idea. Victoria, I didn't know you made that much money. I didn't know about any of it. Please call me. We need to talk. Victoria deleted all the messages without responding. There was nothing Marcus could say that would change her mind. The next morning, she met with Karen to review the settlement terms. Marcus's attorney reached out, Karen said. He wants to negotiate. Apparently, Marcus is in shock about your actual financial situation. What does he want? He's asking for spousal support. Claims he's entitled to compensation because he supported your career during the marriage. Victoria laughed, a genuine, surprised laugh. He supported my career. He didn't even know what my career was. I explained that to his attorney. The prenup is ironclad. Marcus gets nothing except his personal belongings and whatever's left in the joint account. But his attorney is pushing back, claiming emotional distress and loss of lifestyle. Let them push, Victoria said calmly. We have evidence of his affair, his theft, and his emotional abuse. If he wants to go to trial, I'm ready. Karen smiled. That's what I told them. I expect they'll settle within a week once Marcus realizes he has no leverage. That afternoon, Victoria received an unexpected visitor at her office. Thomas Morrison, the CEO, knocked on her open door. Victoria, do you have a moment? Of course, please come in. Thomas sat across from her, his expression serious. I wanted to talk to you about something personal. I hope that's all right. Go ahead. I've been following the news about your divorce. I know that's difficult, and I want you to know the company supports you completely. But I also wanted to tell you something from my own experience. Thomas leaned forward, his hands folded. 20 years ago, I was married to someone who resented my success. She wanted me to stay small, to avoid risks, to play it safe. I loved her, so I did what she wanted. I turned down promotions. I avoided opportunities. I made myself less so she could feel secure. What happened? Victoria asked. She left me anyway. For someone else. Someone she perceived as more exciting, more ambitious. And I realized I'd sacrificed years of potential for someone who never appreciated the sacrifice. Thomas met Victoria's eyes. You did the opposite. You continued to grow, to achieve, to build something remarkable. You just hid it from someone who couldn't handle it. And now you're free to stop hiding. I'm starting to see that, Victoria said quietly. Good, because the world needs leaders like you, people who refuse to play small, who push boundaries, who build things that matter. Don't ever apologize for being extraordinary. After Thomas left, Victoria sat at her desk thinking about his words. She'd spent 3 years apologizing for her success, making herself smaller to fit into Marcus's limited vision of who she should be. She'd hidden promotions, downplayed achievements, and pretended to be less than she was. But why? To protect Marcus's ego? To avoid conflict? To maintain a marriage that was already broken? Victoria pulled up her email and found the messages from the past week. Congratulations from board members. Interview requests from business publications. Invitations to speak at conferences. Every message was a reminder of who she really was, not Marcus's diminished wife, but Victoria Hayes, strategic innovator and business leader. That evening, she attended a networking dinner with several executives from the tech industry. She'd been invited by Julian Reeves, the chief technology officer from Henderson Global, the company Quantum had acquired through the global tech deal. Victoria, Julian greeted her warmly. Thank you for coming. I know your schedule must be insane right now. It's good to get out, Victoria replied. I've been spending too much time alone, thinking. Over dinner, Victoria found herself genuinely relaxing. Julian was intelligent and respectful. asking thoughtful questions about her strategic approach to the merger. He treated her as an equal, never once suggesting that her success was surprising or unexpected. "Can I ask you something personal?" Julian said as dessert arrived. "You don't have to answer if it's too intrusive. Go ahead. I read about your divorce. And I know this might sound presumptuous, but I want you to know that anyone who couldn't see your value wasn't worthy of you in the first place." Victoria felt tears threaten, but she blinked them back. "Thank you. That's kind of you to say." "It's not kind. It's true. I've worked with hundreds of executives in my career. You're one of the most brilliant strategic minds I've ever encountered. Your soon-to-be ex-husband must have been remarkably insecure to feel threatened by that." Walking back to her car later that evening, Victoria had a sudden realization. She'd been viewing her divorce as a failure, as something shameful to hide. But it wasn't a failure. It was a correction. She'd married the wrong person, someone who couldn't grow with her. And now she was fixing that mistake. The real failure would have been staying, continuing to hide, continuing to accept treatment that diminished her worth. Victoria stood in the parking garage, key fob in hand, and felt something shift inside her chest. It wasn't sadness or regret. It was clarity. Perfect, crystalline clarity about who she was and what she deserved. She deserved a partner who celebrated her success, not one who resented it. She deserved respect, not contempt. She deserved to live in her full power without apology. Marcus had poured dirty water on her, but he'd actually washed away the last of her illusions. And now, Victoria Hayes was standing in the truth of who she'd always been: successful, powerful, and completely worthy of every good thing life had to offer. The settlement conference took place 3 weeks after Marcus was served with divorce papers. Victoria sat in Karen's conference room, calm and professional in a navy suit. Across the table, Marcus looked haggard, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes and wrinkled clothes. His attorney, a tired-looking man named Philip Crawford, shuffled papers nervously. "Thank you all for coming. We're here today to hopefully reach an amicable settlement and avoid a lengthy trial." "Let's be clear," Karen said firmly. "My client is prepared to go to trial if necessary. We have substantial evidence of Mr. Patterson's infidelity, financial misconduct, and emotional abuse. The prenuptial agreement is ironclad. There's very little to negotiate here. My client is willing to acknowledge certain mistakes," Crawford said carefully, "but he believes he's entitled to some consideration given the length of the marriage and his contributions to the household." Victoria spoke for the first time, her voice steady. "What contributions?" "Marcus hasn't worked in 4 months. Before that, his salary barely covered his own expenses. I paid the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, everything. And in return, he stole from me, cheated on me, and humiliated me in my own home." Marcus flinched at her words but said nothing. "Mr. Crawford," Karen continued, "your client can either accept the terms we've outlined, which frankly are more generous than required, or we can proceed to trial. If we go to trial, every detail of Mr. Patterson's behavior will become public record. The affair, the harassment complaints that led to his termination, the financial fraud. Is that really what he wants?" Crawford whispered something to Marcus, who shook his head adamantly. Then Crawford said, "My client would like to speak directly to Miss Hayes, if that's acceptable." Victoria glanced at Karen, who nodded slightly. "You have 2 minutes, Marcus." Marcus cleared his throat, his voice hoarse. "Victoria, I need you to understand something. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about your real job, your salary, any of it. If I'd known you were that successful, I never would have." "Would have what?" Victoria interrupted. "Never would have cheated? Never would have stolen? Never would have poured dirty water on me?" She leaned forward, her eyes hard. Marcus, the problem isn't that you didn't know how successful I was. The problem is that you treated me badly regardless of what you thought I did for a living. You thought I was a low-level office worker, and you believed that gave you the right to demean me. I was angry about my own life, Marcus said desperately. I was fired, I was failing, and I took it out on you. That was wrong. I see that now. You see it now because you got caught, Victoria replied. You see it now because there are consequences. But you didn't see it when you were emptying our bank account to fund your affair. You didn't see it when you were laughing with Ashley while I stood there covered in dirty water. Marcus put his head in his hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm asking you to have some mercy. I have nothing, Victoria. No job, no savings, nowhere to live. I'm staying in a motel room. Victoria felt something unexpected stir in her chest. Not sympathy exactly, but a kind of sad recognition. Marcus was broken, and she'd once cared about him enough to marry him. But caring about someone didn't mean accepting their abuse. Karen, Victoria said quietly, in addition to the settlement terms we've outlined, I'm willing to offer Marcus $20,000 as a final gesture. That's enough for him to get on his feet, find an apartment, and start over. But there are conditions. What conditions? Marcus asked, looking up with desperate hope. You agree to everything in the settlement without modification. You agree to stay out of my life completely. No contact except through attorneys if absolutely necessary. And you agree to seek counseling to address your behavior. I'll pay for 6 months of therapy sessions. Marcus stared at her. Why would you do that for me? I'm not doing it for you, Victoria said. I'm doing it because I don't want to be the kind of person who leaves someone with absolutely nothing, even if they deserve it. I'm doing it because I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror and know I acted with integrity. She stood up, gathering her briefcase. But make no mistake, Marcus. This is mercy, not forgiveness. What you did was unforgivable. I'll never forget the way you treated me, and I'll never trust you again. Take the money, fix yourself, and build a better life. Just do it far away from me. Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. Thank you. I don't deserve this, but thank you. You're right, Victoria said simply. You don't deserve it. She walked out of the conference room without looking back. That evening, Victoria met Diana for coffee at a quiet cafe near her apartment. Marcus's mother embraced her warmly. I heard about the settlement conference, Diana said. Marcus called me crying. He said you offered him money even after everything he did. It felt like the right thing to do, Victoria replied. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in moving forward with my integrity intact. Diana smiled sadly. You're a better person than I am. If someone had treated me the way Marcus treated you, I don't think I could have been so generous. It's not generosity, really, Victoria said thoughtfully. It's self-preservation. I don't want to carry anger and bitterness into my new life. Giving Marcus enough to survive lets me close this chapter without regret. How are you doing? Diana asked. Really doing? Victoria considered the question. I'm good. Actually, I'm better than good. I'm free. For the first time in years, I'm living without hiding, without fear, without making myself smaller. It's exhilarating. I'm proud of you, Diana said, squeezing Victoria's hand. And I want you to know, I'll always consider you family, regardless of what happens with Marcus. After Diana left, Victoria walked through the city streets, thinking about forgiveness and redemption. She hadn't forgiven Marcus, and she probably never would. What he'd done was too cruel, too calculated, too unforgivable. But she'd given him a path to redemption. Not redemption in her eyes, but redemption for himself. Whether he took that path was up to him. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from Julian Reeves. I know this might be forward, but I'd love to take you to dinner this weekend. Not a business dinner, an actual date. Only if you're interested. Victoria smiled and typed back. I'd like that very much. She wasn't ready for a serious relationship. Not yet. But she was ready to explore what it felt like to spend time with someone who respected and appreciated her. Someone who didn't need her to be small to feel big. The divorce would be finalized within 6 weeks. The house would be sold, the assets divided per the prenup. Marcus would receive his settlement money and disappear from her life. And Victoria Hayes would continue building the empire she'd always been capable of. No longer burdened by someone else's limitations. The dirty water had washed her clean. 6 months after the dirty water incident, Victoria stood on stage at the Women in Business Summit, accepting the Executive of the Year award. The crystal trophy was heavy in her hands as she looked out at 2,000 women who'd come to hear her speak. Thank you, she began, her voice clear and strong. This award is an incredible honor, but I want to be honest with you about something. A year ago, I was living a double life. The room went completely silent. At work, I was closing billion-dollar deals and earning promotions. At home, I was pretending to be someone smaller, quieter, less successful. I hid my achievements from my husband because I was afraid of threatening his ego. I made myself invisible to make him feel important. Victoria paused, letting her words sink in. And in return, he treated me with contempt. He cheated. He stole, and ultimately, he poured a bucket of dirty water over my head to demonstrate how worthless he thought I was. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. But here's what I learned from that experience. That dirty water didn't diminish me. It washed away the lies I'd been telling myself. The lie that I needed to be small to be loved. The lie that my success was something to apologize for. The lie that keeping the peace was more important than demanding respect. Victoria held up the award. This trophy represents achievement, but the real achievement wasn't closing a $20 billion deal. The real achievement was finally understanding my own worth and refusing to accept anything less than what I deserved. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. Women lined up afterward to share their own stories, to thank Victoria for her honesty, to tell her how her words had changed their perspective. One young woman, barely 30, said through tears, I was about to marry someone who makes me feel guilty about my career. Your speech just saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Later that evening, Victoria returned to the townhouse she now shared with Julian. They'd been dating for 4 months, and she was cautiously optimistic about the future. Julian treated her as an equal partner, celebrating her success rather than feeling threatened by it. How was the speech? He asked, pulling her into a warm embrace. Powerful, Victoria replied. I think I helped some people today. You help people every day, Julian said. Not just through your work, but through your example. You show women that they don't have to choose between professional success and personal happiness. They cooked dinner together, moving around the kitchen in comfortable synchronization. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from Karen. Divorce finalized. You're officially free. Victoria felt a wave of relief wash over her. The legal ties to Marcus were finally severed. She was completely, truly free. Good news? Julian asked, noticing her expression. The divorce is final. Julian kissed her forehead. How do you feel? Grateful, Victoria said simply. Grateful for the ending, and grateful for the new beginning. Over dinner, they discussed the Fresh Start Foundation, which had grown beyond Victoria's initial vision. They'd helped 63 women leave abusive relationships in the past 6 months. They'd provided legal assistance, temporary housing, financial counseling, and emotional support. Victoria visited the foundation office every week, meeting with clients and hearing their stories. Many of the women reminded her of herself, intelligent, accomplished, but trapped in relationships with people who needed them to fail. Watching them rebuild their lives, watching them discover their own strength, filled Victoria with purpose. "I got a call from a publisher today," Victoria mentioned over dessert. "They want me to write a book about my experience, how I built my career while navigating a difficult marriage, and how I found the courage to leave. Are you going to do it?" Julian asked. "I think so. If my story can help even one woman recognize her own worth and leave a situation that diminishes her, it's worth sharing." Later that night, Victoria stood on their balcony, looking out at the city lights. She thought about where she'd been a year ago, standing in her old house, drenched in dirty water, believing for one terrible moment that Marcus might be right about her. But he'd been wrong. So completely, devastatingly wrong. Victoria wasn't worthless. She wasn't nothing. She was brilliant, accomplished, powerful, and worthy of every good thing life had to offer. She always had been. The dirty water hadn't revealed some hidden truth about her character. It had revealed the truth about Marcus's character. She thought about the moral of her story, the lesson she wanted people to understand. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Victoria had learned this the hard way. Marcus's cruelty said nothing about her value and everything about his insecurity. The people who truly loved her, Diana, Julian, her colleagues, the women at the foundation, they saw her worth clearly because they weren't threatened by it. Never make yourself small for someone else's comfort. Victoria had spent 3 years hiding her success, and it hadn't saved her marriage. It had only delayed the inevitable while robbing her of the joy of living authentically. The right people would celebrate her achievements, not resent them. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for your greatest growth. The dirty water incident had been devastating, humiliating, and cruel. But it had also been the moment Victoria finally stopped accepting unacceptable treatment. It had been her liberation disguised as her lowest point. Mercy is about your character, not theirs. Victoria had offered Marcus financial help, not because he deserved it, but because she wanted to live with integrity. Showing mercy to someone who'd wronged her hadn't made her weak. It had demonstrated her strength and her commitment to her own values. Julian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How far I've come," Victoria said, "and how grateful I am for every step of the journey, even the painful ones. Do you ever regret the marriage?" Victoria considered the question carefully. "I regret the time I wasted trying to be someone I wasn't, but I don't regret the lessons I learned. I needed to go through that experience to understand what I truly deserve." She turned in his arms, looking up at his kind face. "I deserved respect. I deserved partnership. I deserved someone who celebrated my success instead of resenting it. And now I have all of that." Julian kissed her gently. "I'm the lucky one. I get to be with someone who knows her worth and refuses to settle for less." As they went inside, Victoria glanced back at the city one last time. Somewhere out there, Marcus was living his own life, dealing with his own consequences. Victoria wished him no specific harm, but she also felt no connection to him anymore. He'd become irrelevant to her happiness. The woman Marcus had poured dirty water on no longer existed. She'd been washed away, replaced by someone stronger, clearer, and more certain of her own value. Victoria Hayes had risen from her lowest moment to build a life of purpose, success, and genuine happiness. She'd transformed her pain into power, her humiliation into helping others, and her ending into a new beginning. The dirty water hadn't broken her. It had just washed away everything that didn't serve her, leaving behind the truth she'd always known deep down. She was extraordinary, and she always had been. She just needed someone cruel enough to pour dirty water on her to finally believe it. Moral: your worth is inherent, not dependent on others' perception. Those who try to diminish you are revealing their own insecurity, not your inadequacy. True strength lies in refusing to shrink for anyone's comfort and having the courage to walk away from situations that require you to be less than you are. The people who deserve you will celebrate your light, not demand you dim it.